everyone, it's Shannon here for Honeybee Stamps. In today's video, we're going to create this sweet Valentine's themed card. This card does feature several products that are retiring, so if you see anything you like, definitely jump on it and get it fast. We're going to start with this adorable Enjoy the Ride stamp set. This is a 6x6 stamp set, so a larger one. I'm going to use these cute little bunnies on a Vespa here, as well as some hearts and the beret. I have the stamps here arranged in my MISTI, and I'm going to stamp them on some white cardstock in intense black ink from Honeybee Stamps. So just going to ink that up and stamp those images. Then I'm going to clean my stamps and then reposition the larger heart and stamp it one more time. So I have 3 hearts in total. Now that I have all my images stamped and I've allowed the ink to dry completely, I'm going to Copic color my images in. Starting with the bunnies, I have 2 light kind of tans picked out, E30 and E31. Coloring first with E30 as my base. Once I color all of the bunnies with that light tan, I'm going to go to my darker shade, which is E31, and start adding in some of the shadows on their heads and bodies. Then I'll go back to E30 and just kind of blend it out a little bit to soften the transition between the 2 shades. Then we're going to move on to RV11, which is a light pink. I'm going to use that to create some cheeks and color in the ears. Then onto the Vespa, using 3 markers here, starting with BV00 as my base, coloring pretty much the whole Vespa with that light purple. Then moving on to BV02 to start adding in some of those shadows and create that illusion of depth. Then moving on to BV17, which is my darkest shade, and then I'll go back through with my medium, which again was BV02, and then finally BV00, which was my light, and just kind of blend it out over that Vespa. Now moving on to my red combo, R22 and then R17 for the hearts and the beret. And I do actually color the little tail light with that red combo as well. I just missed it in this first go around. Now for the seat, I'm using E35 as my light and then E57 as my dark. Here you can see I'm coloring that tail light. Now I'm going to move on to some grays for the tires, starting with C1. Now I'm on to C3, and then I'll finish up with C5, and then I'll blend it back out with C3 again, and then lastly C1. And now that we've got the tires and the little handle done, I'm going to move on to a light blue for the kind of the bunny tail and the gas, just adding a little kind of shadow to those. And then we're going to finish up here. I went ahead and die cut the images out with the matching dies. And now I'm using a white gel pen just to add a highlight here and there over these images. Anywhere where I think it's going to kind of show up. So these bunnies are pretty light, so you don't really see it on them very well. But luckily you can see it nicely on the red and the Vespa, and it does add this just nice little extra layer of dimension. So now that I've got the highlight done, we're going to move on to the background. I'm going to use this Paris Skyline background stencil. I'm going to grab the 2 bottom pieces here. They kind of work as a stencil and a mask, which is going to work perfect for this background. I'm going to start by using this bottom portion of this stencil as a stencil and ink blend kind of a skyline, a Parisian skyline with iced spruce distress oxide. I'm going to create a little gradation here. I am going to cover up the bottom portion with a strip of cardstock, so I'm not so worried about that portion down there. After I ink blended my gradation with iced spruce, I then wanted it to darken up a little bit, so I used some weathered wood distress ink to kind of darken up my gray and get a little bit more of contrast in my gradation. Now moving on to adding some splatters, I pressed the iced spruce ink pad down onto some acetate, added some water, and then I just loaded my brush with the watered down ink and splattered over that city skyline just to add some texture. Now I'm going to use the bottom portion of the stencil, and this works as a perfect mask, so super handy to protect that skyline as we ink blend this sky. I'm going to start with Spun Sugar Distress Oxide here and just quickly ink blend right above the buildings, and then I'll finish with Shaded Lilac Distress Oxide to create this little pretty pastel kind of ombre sky. Once I finish with this Shaded Lilac, I'm going to use it just like I did with the ice spruce. I'm going to press it down onto my sheet of acetate, add some water, then load my brush up with the watered down ink, and then just add some splatters to that sky to again add a little bit of texture and a little bit more interest. And that will actually kind of complete the ink blended portion of our background. Now we're going to add some die cuts. I have the Paris Skyline Scene Builder dies here. I die cut some buildings out of gray cardstock And before we add those to our card base, we're going to quickly stamp our sentiment. I grabbed a sentiment from that Enjoy Your Ride stamp set, inked it up in intense black ink, and just stamped it in the upper right corner. Here's that strip of white cardstock. We're going to actually adhere those buildings to this strip. So we're going to add a little bit of liquid glue to the very, very bottom of the buildings and attach them to the backside of that strip of white cardstock. After I've added these 3 buildings to the backside, I'm then going to grab this Arc de Triomphe kind of building, add a little bit of liquid adhesive to the bottom, and then add it to the front of that white strip. Now we're going to add some dimension with foam adhesive. So I'm going to cut some foam adhesive strips here, even going to cut some smaller ones to go behind the buildings to support them as well. This is going to add a lot of depth. This really adds to the scene quite a bit. I went ahead and removed the backing on the foam adhesive, and now I'm just going to add it to the lower portion of my card front. Then we're ready for our images. I'm going to start with the cute bunnies on the Vespa, add some foam adhesive to the backside of that, remove the backing, stick those guys down. Then I'm going to quickly adhere that cute little beret to the little bunny sitting in the back here. And then we're going to finish up with the hearts. I'm just going to add some foam adhesive to the backside of them and then stick them down around the bunnies. And that will actually complete this card. I'll hold up here to the camera so you can get a good look at all the details. I love the way this turned out. I think the background has a lot of interest going on with the texture, the ink blending, and the die cuts, but it's not too busy. Your eye is still drawn to those brightly colored images and that pop of color. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.